Hello, my name is Tricia Crowley with the League of Women Voters of Champaign County. One of the major missions of the League is to provide information to voters to help them when voting for candidates for office. In this consolidated election of 2025, one of the most important races is for a seat on the Unit 4 school board. This is an interview with Grace Kang, who is running for a 4-year seat on the school board. And she's being interviewed by two students. So why don't you two introduce yourselves?
Hello, my name is Lily. I'm a junior at Central High School, and I'm with the League of Women Voters.
Hi, I'm a senior at Centennial. I'm Ulaya.
Okay, all right.
Meet you both.
Yeah, and the candidate will have a 2-minute opening statement, 1.5 minutes per question, and 1 minute for closing. So Grace, take it away.
All right. Hi, my name is Grace Kang, and I am a resident of Champaign for about, how many years? 16 years I've lived here in Champaign, and I have 4 children, and they all attend Unit 4 public schools. I am currently an associate professor of elementary literacy at the university, at Illinois State University, and I have been a past public elementary and middle school teacher.
Mhm. Okay, then we'll start with the questions.
Okay, cool.
What life experiences and skills do you have that would make you an effective member of the school board?
Great. I love this question. It's a little bit about what I shared already about an intro of myself. I do have 4 children, and they are in 3 different Unit 4 schools currently. I have participated in the PTA at multiple levels as a member and also as a board member. I've also served on the Unit 4 scholarship committees and the Triple E committee. I was also a past elementary and middle school teacher. My first year teaching was actually in Unit 4, and my other years were in other public schools for about 10 years total. And I do have my PhD in curriculum and instruction in language and literacy. And I currently am a professor of elementary literacy at a local institution. I do observe teacher candidates at Unit 4 buildings. And so I do lead that partnership that ISU serves alongside some Unit 4 schools. So I do engage with cooperating teachers, and I'm in the buildings quite often, and I do work with future teachers. I am a public school advocate through and through. I support issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion and access all across different content areas and areas of education. I do believe that these various identities qualify me to serve as a school board member, and I wholeheartedly support public education through and through. I understand how challenging it can be for teachers and support staff in the schools, and I am a teacher advocate, and I have a wealth of different experiences in education.
What do you think the 3 biggest problems at Unit 4, and what solutions would you offer?
Yeah, this is a big question. I don't know if I would call them problems, maybe challenges. And I think that's what the board is for, that we're here to serve in these various challenges. I would first and foremost say that I would want to prioritize teacher contracts. And so working with CFT and working with CESP is really crucial to ensure that teachers and support staff, their roles are elevated to know that the work they do is extremely important in Unit 4. And I want to ensure that they know that and feel that about, we know that that's their profession is really important, and that they know that they are true professionals. I think a lot of the rhetoric these days in society is a deprofessionalization of teachers. And I think we want to ensure that they are valued and they know that, coming from the board's perspective, coming from the administrator's perspective. So I think that's really crucial that we focus on ensuring that they get a fair contract for both sets, CFT as well as CESP. And that I think that would also ensure that we can focus on the retention of teachers and support staff to stay in Unit 4, as well as the recruitment of high quality teachers and support staff, which is also a really important piece as we have a teacher shortage going on right now, which is really important that we want to ensure that we can bring in high quality teachers and support staff. Secondly, I think we also want to acknowledge that there's been a special education audit that's been taking place for quite some time. And I think that's going to require a thorough review of data. And we want to ensure that the board reviews that and that we have some swift implementation of any necessary changes so that all students at all levels and all learners are we're meeting their needs. Thirdly, I would maybe say to address the disparities and inequities that exist around our schools, in particular our elementary schools. I think this includes providing targeted support and resources to schools that may face some greater challenges. And I think we want to ensure that we are providing as many supports and scaffolds as possible. I do believe strongly in the importance of early intervention, especially universal preschool for all, if there are opportunities and funding for that, various tutoring and mentoring initiatives. I know that we have CU one-to-one mentors, which is a great program, and just ensuring if there are any opportunities for tutoring that can contribute as well. So if I were to pick three, those would probably be my three.
Do you have any experience, especially volunteer experience, working with children?
Yes, I do. And I love children. That's obviously why I became a teacher. And I was a public school teacher for many years. So that I don't know if I would consider that volunteer work, I guess. But most recently, I did teach an after school club focused on out of school writing opportunities at the local elementary school that my son attends. And I really enjoyed that. I also will jump at any chance to teach any summer camps, especially focused on writing. I've done that for several summers. I have been a CU one-to-one mentor for several years. I volunteered with an organization called Young Lives, and I have mentored teen moms and their children. So that's just a host of experiences that I've had in volunteering with kids.
Public perception is that the current school board is dysfunctional. As a board member, what would you do to help create a functional board?
Yeah. Interesting question. I guess my disposition would first be to listen. I am a very good listener, I would say. That's probably one of my greatest traits. I do hope as a new school board member that I could do my due diligence to take stock of what's going on the board, to read the materials, to go through my own kind of orientation to fully understand what the role of a board member is, in particular, the role of a board member at Unit 4. So that would be my first place to start, is to position myself as a learner, as a listener. Secondly, I think I would do my best to be a collegial and collaborative board member to ensure that I come as someone that listens, but can also at times disagree, but not necessarily a disagreement that we can't move forward. Perhaps there will be disagreements, but I think that's not always a bad thing, that we can challenge each other to ensure that we can come to a better solution. If there are moments of disagreement, like I said, that hope we challenge each other's viewpoints, as well as that we're not in our own silos, but that we can try to be open-minded to hear what the other person has to say, to move from like an unlearning space to a learning space. And that piece, I think moving from unlearning to learning is sometimes really challenging. But if we can be in that space together, I think we can have some proactive conversations and hopefully to move our district forward.
Unit 4 administration had a large number of high-ranking staff leave. Why do you think that occurred?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I don't know. I guess that would be my response. I don't really understand that fully, and I'm not sure what their reasons were for leaving. I think it's hard to make assumptions about that. I assume they had their own reasons for that, and I don't want to spread any rumors about why that happened or why it didn't. Also, because I'm not really certain myself. I hope that wherever they've gone, I wish them well. And I think our district hopefully is trying to has replaced some of those positions, and we're able to move forward as well.
Within the Unit 4 budget, assuming no new revenue, would you want to relocate money to other existing programs or new programs? What programs? And if so, where would the funds be taken away from?
Yeah, again, like I feel like that I'm not really sure what I would say without really looking at the budget. I don't want to take away any money from existing programs that in particular support children and support kids. For example, CU one-to-one mentoring, any tutoring initiatives, early intervention programs, or special education programs. Like I would have a hard time pulling money from anything that directly works with children. Again, I think it's hard to answer the question without fully looking at the budget and really giving a thorough review. I know at this point where we're at with the federal government, taking away some funds, in particular around DEIA issues, I think that's really unfortunate. And so I think we would want to ensure any programs that are around those issues are still continuing to be funded. Taking away money, that's the part of the question that I don't know if I can really answer. I do hope we can work on a transportation budget that can be a little bit more effective. I know that kids are being bused quite a bit in the district to be going to different schools that aren't, because we're not following a neighborhood school model. If we could perhaps save some money there, and maybe we could ensure that maybe some of that budget then can be reallocated. But I guess I don't want to speak prematurely on that, but I guess that's what I would say, that I wouldn't want to take away money from anything that directly impacts working with children. And I would want to think through some other areas like transportation. Not that, of course, kids are on buses. I understand that, but I guess in working with them in academics or working with them in social emotional areas, that's kind of what I mean by that.
Resources needed for special education programs?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm sure there are. I think there's probably many resources that we could be providing to special education. I personally believe teachers and assistants are our greatest resource. And if we had more funding, I would want to put that to teachers, into ensuring that we have enough teachers, we have enough assistants. I'm sure there's probably could be more funding with curriculum. I'm sure there could be more funding and resources, tangible resources, but personally, I think the resources, if we had more funding for, should be going to the best resource, which is our teachers and our assistants.
Are more funds needed to address the issue of non-English speaking students and families?
Yes, again, I would say the same. I'm sure if there were more funds that there are many different resources that could be provided. I would probably not say non-English speaking students and families. I would call them multilingual students and families, ensuring that we as a district recognize that having multiple languages is an asset and that they can speak multiple languages, which is extremely powerful and an asset that I think all of us see as a benefit and strength. So I'm sure multilingual learners in our district, if there was more funding, would benefit. I would hope we could work with Carolyn Bartolotto, who's the director of multilingual services in our district, and she could really work with us. And I think we should utilize the specialists that we have in our district and work alongside. We should ask the team and ensure that those teachers have a voice. And if they felt like there were more opportunities for funding where they feel like it would be most advantageous.
The issue of assigning children to a school is difficult because there are the need of balance and the desire for neighborhood schools, social economic integration, and transportation. There's the current Schools of Choice program and the 4 plans presented by the consultants. What are your views on this issue?
Yeah, I mean, I think schools of choice is complicated. I do think kids aren't just being assigned, but there are choices. So parents and families do have opportunities to rank their top choices, and they have an advantage within if they have a proximity school. Obviously, they're not guaranteed those choices. I do think this model does need review and needs to be reevaluated. I understand the basis and the reasoning for it. And so I think that is why the district tried to provide other models. They hired the consultant to provide various models. However, the community did not respond very well to that. Rightfully so. I think a lot of families were going to be disrupted and their education was going to be impacted. And so I do think that it would be beneficial to review the current schools of choice model, and perhaps when we are able to do that, to ensure that we can provide timely information to the community to ensure that they have opportunities to speak into that. They can also have buy-in, that we can provide equitable options for all families, and that the schools can continue to be balanced in racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic areas. I don't think that having a balanced model, the way that we're doing schools of choice, is only benefiting certain kids. I think that's a benefit to all kids. When we can go to school with kids that are different than ourselves, based on race, based on class, based on language. I think that's a benefit for everybody. That's not just beneficial to one subset of children. So I think we need to ensure that we do our research as a board to think about the ways in which we can provide that equitable education for all, and perhaps not to be as disruptive, and to rethink ways that we're not busing children all across the community. So I think there's a lot of layers to that. And I do hope that as a board, we can provide review the current model and provide some other options.
School success is greatly impacted by attendance. How would you increase attendance?
Yes, I definitely think attendance is of supreme importance. Kids can't learn and grow if they're not at school. And so I do think the district has tried to highlight this by sending the various attendance report cards to the parents and guardians. Obviously, I think there's been some incentives that have been offered by schools. There's been some various prizes and rewards and awards offered to individual students as well as classrooms to kind of rally kids together. I think all of those help, and all of those are good initiatives. I do think that we need to create patterns and routines and norms for families to ensure to get to school on time. I'm not really sure how to do that. I do think that we want to figure out a way to do that, though. I think when we have a pattern and when there's a routine and a norm established within a family to ensure that education is of supreme importance, and we're working really hard to get our kids to school on time. If we could ensure that that is being established, I think that would be fantastic. If kids are being bused, if they're taking a public transportation that's provided by the district, I do think we want to ensure we have enough bus drivers, and we want to ensure that the buses are on time, and that bus drivers are not taking multiple routes. And sometimes when that happens, and kids are late to school, and I think that is very tricky. If parents are working and their kids are they're just waiting on the bus and the bus doesn't come, then that's really hard for them to get to school. So I think if there's something that's within our control, that we can ensure that we have enough bus drivers, we can ensure buses are on time. I think that's really of supreme importance as well. So I do think it's a hard question. I really hope that that is something that I do think as a district, we are working on it. And if we can continue to emphasize the importance of attendance.
What can be done to increase student test scores?
Yeah, this is a big question too. I do think that testing is important. I also think that many other forms of assessments are also important. I am a qualitative researcher. I think qualitative forms of assessment are also just dually as important. If we're pairing that alongside quantitative data, I think that's really important. And I do believe teachers are doing that. So I think we need to see our teachers as our best resource again, to see the various assessments that they're collecting, not just quantitative data. However, when we look at quantitative data, I do think we need to look at benchmarks. And so looking at fall, winter, and spring test scores and looking at students' individual growth, I think sometimes we look at these students are all below grade level. However, if a student is below grade level in the fall, but has increased in the winter, but is still below grade level, they've still made some gains. And if they've improved their winter scores from to their spring scores, they've also made progress and also made gains. I think sometimes it's natural to just look across the grade and say, oh, there's 60% are below grade level. However, if 60% of those students have still made some gains and improvements, that's still some progress, maybe slower progress than we hope, but it is still progress. So I do think that we, of course, want to continue to increase test scores to be above grade level, at or above grade level. But I also think we want to look at the benchmarks and individual students and how they're making progress. Pairing that alongside multiple forms of assessment. Also, yes, I do want test scores to also increase. So I think that means we need to ensure that our curriculum and our instruction is meeting the needs of our students. So sometimes that means piloting a new curriculum. And I do think the district does that, does take a look at new curriculum quite often. But sometimes that means pairing teacher professional knowledge alongside their lessons, alongside their instruction, and ensuring, because teachers know their students the best, and teachers know how students are going to meet some of those goals. And so ensuring that it's not just teachers following a script in a curriculum, but if a teacher has professional knowledge, they've been teaching for 10, 20 plus years, treating teachers as professionals, that they have that knowledge alongside the curriculum to then improve test scores.
Pursuant to Board Policy Section 2.20, the board has the authority to approve the hiring and firing of Unit 4 personnel. Under what circumstances would you further pursue the superintendent's decision to dismiss professional staff?
Yeah, I guess for myself, I would say I would review the data and see the justification in the superintendent's decision-making and process that she has used to approach dismissing professional staff. And after doing my due diligence of reviewing the materials of her decision, I would then either vote to support or not to support. I would ensure that I know the full information and that I can make a decision based on that. I don't really know if I could speak to how I would do that right now. I guess I would really see that as case by case. And just like in my profession, if I was going to be dismissed, I would want to know that someone reviewed my materials carefully and that it was not just based on you like the person or didn't like the person, or they didn't do this or they didn't do that. However, I'm sure there's a protocol and I'm sure there's a process to follow. And I would ensure that I follow that process, and I would ensure that I do my due diligence and my part to understand the full perspective and to understand all of the data, understand all of the materials that are provided around that.
It seems a number of basic questions that board members asked have gone unanswered. What would you do to make sure board members' questions are answered?
Yeah, I'm not really sure about if I understand the question, if you all want to provide a little clarifying information for me, like who are
I
the
think
board
there's-
members asking the questions to?
I think the board members are asking the administration for information and they're not necessarily receiving it.
Administration as in the superintendent?
Yes.
Okay. I guess if that's the question, I would ensure that I asked those questions before the school board meeting. I would try to do my part of doing my homework and asking questions and setting up a meeting with the superintendent, asking so that we can review materials, whether that means in person or whether that means it can be done via email. I'm not really certain why those questions aren't getting answered if they've been asked. I know lots of questions are asked during school board meetings. I'm not sure if that's the right place, like if those questions could have been asked at a different time and to prepare for other matters that are also being discussed at the board meetings. I guess that would be my response. I don't know, like if I tried to set those up and they were not there was not a response, or they were not receptive to it. How would I make sure that board members' questions are answered? I'm not really sure that that's in the board's control if the questions aren't being answered. So yeah, I guess I'm not really sure about that question.
Under Unit 4's contract with Superintendent Boozer, the school board could terminate the contract 1 year early by acting by March 31st, 2025. Would you vote to terminate the contract at that time, and why or why not?
We did get this question asked in the News Gazette question very recently. And I honestly, again, I feel like I'm saying this quite often, which may not be helpful, but I don't know. I guess that's my honest question, my honest response. I don't want to give you a premature answer because honestly, I don't know what the evaluation process completely looks like. I feel that evaluating the superintendent is one of the board's highest callings and critical responsibilities. I do believe to do that effectively, I would need to fully understand that process and that protocol, including metrics that are used, including I would say a whole host of information that I think at times board members are perhaps more privy to than community members. And so I would want to ensure that I understand that information, just as if, like I said, if it was my position. As an academic, I am assessed on my research, my service, and my teaching. That probably doesn't mean anything to someone who's not an academic. In the same way, as someone who is a superintendent, as someone who serves in that capacity, I would believe that there are certain evaluation measures and tools that are utilized. And I don't know those evaluation tools and measures. So I do feel like it would be premature of me to answer that question. And I would like to know how people who are saying to terminate her contract early are answering that and what data that's based on, and if that's hearsay or if that's true data. Because there is some information that I would think that board members are privy to that me as a community member currently that I do not have. And so I guess my point is that I'm not sure where I would land on that. I do think there's some strengths in her leadership. I do think there's areas of weakness. So I'm saying I am 100% one way and 100% the other, but I would need to fully understand that. And I do think that as a board member, that is our duty, to do our due diligence, to fully understand the superintendent's strengths, weaknesses. Is this leader going to be able to lead our district in the future? And I need to look at that fully to be able to answer that question.
Well, that's the end of our questions. So if you have a 1 minute closing.
Okay. I really appreciate this. I love that the students are the ones that interviewed us. And thank you so much, both of you. You both did a great job. And I think I love that you are involved in work like this at at an early age. So thank you. Thank you for participating. I am a community member. I am a public school advocate. I am just like everybody else. I'm just here to support my kids. I'm here to support Unit 4 schools. And I think serving on the board would be a community service and a civic way that I could serve my community. And that's really what I'm here for. I'm just thinking through my strengths and my expertise as a teacher and as an educator in what I do. And that's how I would contribute, I feel, the most to the board. And I would do my best, and I would be honest, and I would listen, and I would learn. That's where what I would say my strengths are.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I know it's a difficult thing to run for public office, and of all the public offices, the school board is one of the most difficult. So, for taking on that task, we would congratulate you. It's part of our civic participation. And thank you to Leah and Lily. And this, I guess, will be the end of our interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you.